Can you hear me now? Yeah. The green light was on. My name's Greg Hand. I'm the president of St. Peter's Council. We've called a special congregational meeting for this morning to conduct certain specific church business that members of council have believe that needs to be accomplished. At the end of this one specific issue and business that we're going to be doing this morning, we'll have some updates for mission campaign, finance, and stewardship. I'm going to list the agenda that we have this morning. We're going to be doing, first of all, opening prayer and call to order, parliamentarian teller's appointment, and we need to make sure we have a number of people available for a quorum, so that's one of the key things. So that, and then after that, we'll get into the discussion of the vicarage, followed by a motion to sell the vicarage, and then with the final updates. At this point, I'd like to turn it over to Pastor Ross for an opening prayer.
The Lord be with you.
And also with you.
Let us pray. Gracious God, you call us to many tasks in church and in life. Many of them are, how should we say, spiritual in nature. They are things like worshiping and singing and burying the dead and marrying people and baptizing and confirming and communing, all those things that draw us that we love about the church. But also, business work is holy work as well. And it's the way in which we put flesh and blood to our ministries. And so we thank you for all those involved in this congregation who help that flesh and blood ministry thrive and be done well. We ask you to bless our congregation as we gather and we deliberate important issues. We pray that your spirit will be among us in all that we do. For we ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Okay. We've appointed Leslie McCarthy as parliamentarian, and also Mark and Betsy Lynn as tellers or counters. Do we have Mark and Betsy? Have we done a count? 102. All right. So we have a quorum to conduct our business. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Mark Aho, who has done a lot of work on the vicarage.
Clicker here.
Yep, here's the clicker. That's forward here.
Okay. All right, good morning, all. So, as Greg said, we've done quite a bit in regards to the vicarage after the congregation approved us looking into selling it previously, so I just want to bring you up to date. So a quick review of the actions we've taken. We had the annual meeting in November. We did have a motion there presented to commence the process of marketing and selling the vicarage. I know probably a lot of us felt, here we go, we're going to sell the vicarage, but when we really thought about it, we wanted to make sure that the motion is very precise, that we're authorizing to sell it, etc. So that's what tonight is about today. So one of the big things was taking a look at the real estate agent, which we're all familiar with, versus an auction process, because that was brought up as an alternative. We did 2 or 5 total people, auctioneers and real estate agents, through the property, interviewed them to understand the process. One big thing that was good in a way, we got very consistent feedback from all of those people. Basically, you know what's going on with interest rates and everything else, so they said basically move fast before the market deteriorates. But having said that, the market in Manheim Township is still very strong. I actually had someone looking at the property yesterday because I wanted some really recent feedback, and they said as of right now in this price range, there's only 2 houses on the market in Manheim Township, which is kind of crazy, and their market value estimate was $250,000 to $280,000, but possibly with upside potential if you get some competition going. And as I said, there's very limited inventory. So the considerations we had as we thought about this were, we want quick resolution given the possibility of the market deteriorating any further. We want to sell it as is. We've got limited resources to get in there, and to try to fix things would take some time. But on top of that, everybody remarked that the property is very clean. It's pretty much ready to sell. And I mean, it's got a few minor warts, but nothing that would dissuade people from purchasing it. And then really just for the process, we need authorized agents to make sure who's available to sign and clear decision-making as we field offers and things like that. So we did review with council the different opportunities between auction and real estate, and the strong consensus there was to go with the traditional real estate approach. Really the big pros and cons are the auction process might provide the potential for some lower fees, but the biggest trade-off is it could take 8 to 10 weeks to get it on the market, because they don't really essentially put it on the market until they schedule a sale date. So that was the biggest concern, because that's going to be 2+ months. So we wanted to draft a specific resolution to put in front of the council, which was put together by the council members. Schedule a congregational meeting, here we are. And the big other key thing was we want to reserve a decision on the use of the funds to allow lots of discussion, input from congregation. So we don't really need to discuss that at this point. Really the key question is, are we ready to sell the vicarage? And then there's going to be an ongoing process through council to determine the best use of those funds. So this is the motion that was crafted. Authorize the congregation council to sell the vicarage as is by obtaining a real estate agent as soon as practically possible, after having obtained the best marketing agreement with them, so we can negotiate fees. With the market inventory being so low, trust me, the agents are all after listings. So I feel we do have the opportunity to negotiate down their fees, and I'll kind of take the lead on that. Funds from the sale will be held in a restricted, dedicated fund until further options for allocation can be reviewed with the congregation. So I would like to make that motion as stated. Do we have a second? Okay, and then we move on to discussion. So I mentioned we've done extensive research. We've toured the property, that got value estimates, and everybody was very consistent in terms of the value. Everybody stressed the importance of moving quickly as the market's still strong. From the date of signing of a real estate agent, they're pretty much saying they can have it on the market within 2 weeks, and that's officially on the market. So actually within days of signing the agreement, they'll start publicizing that, to come, et cetera. And I'm going to lead the process, but there's not going to be any one person that just signs off on things. Basically, if we entertain options, going to take that to designated members of council so we have review before we're signing off on things. So with that, I just want to open it up for discussion if there's any questions at all before we would vote on the motion. In the back? Wait for the mic, please.
Thank you and good morning. I have a question. You keep saying as is. Do you have any idea what the differential in price between as is and fixing whatever is deficient about it is?
We don't view it to be significant at all, and that was the feedback, because I toured the real estate agents. The only 2 known issues I am aware of, and we went through it pretty extensively. There's a screen door on the porch that's rotted and has to be replaced, but that's super easy to do. And then there's an access ramp that goes to that porch. It's solid and it's usable. It's not like it would fail an inspection, but it's getting old. It looks like it needs to be painted or possibly. But depending on who the buyer is, my recommendation would be they just tear it off, because unless they want the handicapped access, it doesn't really do anything for them. So pretty much the feedback, because I addressed that with everybody that toured the property, they said, oh, you're not going to have a problem with this as is. And then having said all of that, if we got what we considered to be a strong offer and there was some kind of issue that we wanted to take care of, we could still do that. So, anybody else? Okay, well, seeing none, I think I'll look at my parliamentarians, but we can just put it up for a vote and reread it, right?
Yes, I'll take a vote First, we'll try a voice vote on the motion. All those in favor of the motion as stated and listed by Mark, would you please say aye? Aye. Are there any nays? No. Hearing no objection, the motion is approved. At this point, I'll turn it over to Adrian.
Good morning. So I'm told short and sweet is the order of this morning, so I will do my best. So mission campaign update. Has everyone here been getting all of the literature and the great work that my partner Jen has been putting out with regard to the mission campaign and its progress? Yes? Lots of nods. Great. So quickly, remember the concept of this campaign. This concept of this campaign was how are we going to increase discipleship as a church? 2 phases, one of which is how are we making this church and the things that we offer internally more appealing? And there were some capital projects that we were going to knock out on that end. But secondarily, and perhaps more exciting for many in this church, is how are we going to go out and how are we going to go out and make disciples abroad, whether that's domestically, whether it's internationally, and we're going to put some of those projects and the ideas for those projects in the hands of everyone here in the congregation. And so the original plan for the campaign, the baseline goal, 1.25 million, with hopefully getting closer to 2, we have commitments of just under $1 million. And we know there's been a lot of discussion surrounding the why for that. We have cash received of just under $700,000. And here's where the spending is right now. We're pleased to announce, and you've probably read it, that all of the capital components to this campaign are now complete. And so what that means is that as we move forward, every dollar that goes to the campaign is now going to be split 50 cents to 50 cents on debt reduction, all right, which is important, and I'll speak to that in a moment, and the building of this mission fund. And remember that the mission fund is what is going to allow us to propose ideas as congregation members to go out and do a missions trip, whether that's saying we're going to do something in Tanzania or we're going to go out to West Virginia or everywhere in between. What are we going to do? That's going to be resting on all of you, putting these ideas together. There's going to be a committee created for vetting these concepts, bringing it in front of council, and then approving them so that we can have dollars distributed from this fund to go out and provide opportunities for missions work abroad. But debt reduction, just as important. As you all probably know, we have a variable loan. And where are our interest rates right now? Up. So we are over 7% on this variable loan that we have. Every 50 cents of every dollar is going to go towards pay down of debt. And so if you have not committed to this campaign, if you have not put money forth to this campaign yet, understand that 7% is high. And that is going to eat into our operating budget, and it's going to eat into the ability for us to go out and do the things that we want to do on a day-to-day basis as well. So I implore you all to really consider prayerfully what you can do to start putting money into this campaign, understanding that debt reduction is going to be 50 cents on every dollar. Any questions? Should we wait for the mic? I'll give you mine.
Well, I have no argument with what you said, but my question is, the capital improvements that we've made have been piling up over a number of years. We finally got them done, as you said. But what happens if there's a sudden emergency? Big windstorm, something gets broken, knocked down. With our giving down and our attendance down, are we going to be back where we were 2 or 3 years ago and not have the money to fix it?
That's a great question. And I think that's one of the reasons why the sale of the vicarage is still up in the air with regard to what is going to happen with those proceeds. The notion of building a sinking fund for, those kind of emergencies is something that's on the table as well. So great question. Other questions?
I was just curious, the husband and wife that we hired, are they still involved with this? Like, what's their status? Aren't they husband and wife? Yeah, the consultants we hired, are they still involved? Because I haven't heard much.
I thought you meant the music department. I was like, I was like, I saw they were here this morning. I saw them. I was like, so Kirby Smith, our campaign consultants, they are, their involvement at this point in time is virtually nil. They've given us their information. They are always at our disposal if we need them for any additional information. But their involvement is greatly reduced. Any others? All right, I'm going to hand it over to Jen Quick for a quick stewardship update.
I don't have slides. Thanks, Adrian. Good morning, everyone. I'm Jennifer Schlenner-Thomas. I'm here today wearing my hat as the non-chair steward of the Stewardship Committee. So if any of you have a dying interest to provide incredibly helpful coordination to a wonderfully diverse 10-person committee truly doing God's work, see me afterward, because I have a great job for you. But in all seriousness, I am here just as a slight warm-up act to Sherry. You're going to be hearing more about our current year finances. But I want you all to know that our stewardship committee is indeed a diverse group. Individuals who attend all three services. We vary in terms of our tenure in this congregation. And we have been spending much of our time reflecting on church giving trends. We've been reflecting on how our congregation is continuing to evolve into what it is going to be moving forward. And that is absolutely critical. And I will preempt one of the perennial comments that always comes, aren't you preaching to the choir? I am, but indulge me. It is absolutely critical that all of us that claim to be disciples within the St. Peter's family are prayerfully considering how we all are contributing to our financial support that is needed. And we have very recently taken a look at statistics that we found interesting and the committee wanted me to share with several of you. So apologies for not putting these on a slide. So first, our median age is 51. I just turned 50, so here I am. Half of you are on one side of me, half are on the other side. 2022 numbers. Baptized current members, a little over 1,200. Confirmed current members is 930. And then what that translates into in terms of households and giving units is 551. So now you're all asking, of 551, how many are giving? 375. 375 of our 551 households are contributing. In 2023, so jumping to this current year, January and February average attendance was 189. That's in comparison to last year at the same time being 148. The sky is not falling, folks. It's a difference of 50, but we are all here. The other national trend that's really important is that completing annual pledge forms for congregations really is becoming a thing of the past. That had been a really important tradition for many of us. Some of us still do that very faithfully, others do not. So we have 50 fewer households that pledged in 2022 over 2017. So that's a 5-year slight decrease, I would say. But interesting numbers. The other number that we wanted to share with everyone is that only 25% of our contributing households are taking advantage of electronic giving. Why is electronic giving valuable? It's convenient for me, and it adds a level of reliability for the congregation. So we recently learned that there is a slight myth going around in the congregation that if you utilize electronic giving, it costs the church. So there's a partial truth in that. If you use Simply Giving, indeed the church needs to cover those fees. If you use Tithely, which is the handy-dandy thing you can even put on your phone. When you're so moved, you can pull your phone out in the middle of church and make another gift. Most people who are using Tithely cover the fees. So if you use Tithely, you have the opportunity to say, I don't want that small fee to be put on the back of the church. I'll cover it. So if by chance, my attempt at humor and energizing all of you this morning has influenced any of you to say, I want to think about signing up for electronic giving, my friend Randy Shue in the back has kindly brought some of those forms. They are out at a table out in the lobby, out in the narthex area. So either of us would be happy to chat with you. But in all seriousness, our stewardship committee remains grateful for what all of you are doing in terms of your financial gifts, your time, and your talent in continuing to evolve this congregation moving forward. So thank you very much for all of that. And I am now going to turn things over to Sherry Mowell, who's going to talk to you about our current year financial stats. And I'm guessing my friend Paul Schultz might be joining her as well. So I'm not sure who I'm handing off the mic. Yeah, I'm sorry. I should have asked if there were questions. Yep, Steve.
It's not so much a question as a comment. The electronic giving, like you said, wonderful. The communications from the church and the website, our website, not so wonderful.
Okay.
Get the give button, the give now button, get it somewhere that I don't have to scroll through five,
Got it.
5 clicks from my phone to find it.
Great.
When we send out the communications on a weekly basis, somehow figure out how to format all the top.
Terrific. So for folks joining us online, the comment was related to seeing if we could make the opportunities to give online a little clearer. And I'll make the commitment to touch base with Eric Teichman, who still takes the lead on our website. So thanks for the feedback, or whoever does.
Yeah, thank you very much for that feedback. I'm on the communications team with several people, and we need this kind of feedback. We need to know what you're finding on the website and how we can make it more usable. We actually talked about this just last week. There's a lot of blank space on the websites, and it's like you have to scroll down to even read things, and to find the bulletin, you have to basically be a computer programmer to figure out where it is. And so we're addressing those issues, but please, any feedback like that, please let me know, and I'll get that to Jill and the rest of the committee, and we'll make it better for you. Okay.
Any other questions for Jen before we continue? Okay, so I'm Sherry Mao, treasurer, and my buddy Paul Schultz, our parish administrator, who continues to impress us each and every month, and we appreciate all of his dedication in making St. Peter's office run smoother than it has, I think, for years, as far as all the T's being crossed and I's being dotted. So thank you to Paul. I'm going to come this way. So 2 quick slides for you, just so that you can see where we are year to date. You will notice February year-to-date 23 as compared to 22. You will notice that from an income perspective, our offerings are slightly ahead of where we were in 22 year-to-date. You'll notice our special offering is much higher, but we want you to be aware that that is because we received almost $19,000 in an estate gift during the month of February. So obviously that pushes that special offering higher. We do have gifts and bequests budgeted for the year, so that is why that amount will stay in that special offering bucket. So from a total perspective, you'll see that we're at $191,000 compared to $171,000 last year, obviously due to this estate gift. From an expense perspective, HR is ahead of budget by almost $6,500. Please keep in mind, from a budget perspective, that we are paying less staff. So we actually are down 3 full-time positions, although we have added part-time hours within each of those positions. So if we were fully staffed, like we would have been 2 years ago, we would have a whole different financial perspective at this point. So we also do have 3 volunteers coming into the office whom we appreciate very much giving of their time from a staffing perspective, as we now have 2 part-time secretaries instead of a full-time and a part-time. Therefore, we eliminated hours as well as benefits from the full-time secretary. Did you want to add anything on that? Okay. You'll notice our debt to service is a slight bit ahead from what we've paid compared to last year as well. So basically, you'll notice that our expenses are less than last year, and our net year-to-date for February is almost $28,000. Again, take away that 19, we would really be about $8,400 or $8,900 ahead. So at this point in time, I'm happy to say that we are covering our expenses February year-to-date for this year. Yes.
Let me say a word about debt service. As you know, we do have 2 loans. One is a variable rate loan and then the fixed rate loan. The variable rate loan, of course, is the most troubling. As you know, the interest rates have gone from 2.75 when I got here in March of 2021. Now it's a 7.25%. Of course, you know the Federal Reserve is talking about another 0.5% increase. So what does that mean? Well, last year you paid almost $26,000 on the variable rate interest on that variable rate loan. And don't forget, there were 3, if not 4, interest rate hikes during last year. So we're at 7.25. Going forward, it's only going to get higher. So that is why it's important that we pay attention to this and pay this one down as quickly as we can. The balance right now on this loan is $542,843. So I thank you for everyone who is donating to debt service, but prayerfully consider giving more to try to get this under control.
Next one. This slide allows you to see the 5-year trend for income, our totals. So you'll notice again, we're about $20,000 ahead of last year. Notice 2020 would have been the year that COVID hit in the beginning of 2020, March of 2020 to be exact. So I think our income is on the way up again. I feel like things are kind of like, obviously we're seeing more people in church again. I think we're seeing a larger commitment. People are getting excited about St. Peter's. It's just time that we all come together and do what God has put us here on earth to do. And that is to combine as a congregation and take care of the people around us. So that's good news, I think. Again, you can see our expense trend for the last 5 years, and you will notice our total for this year is significantly under the past 4 years. So just keep that in mind, that there are several items affecting that. Again, it's staffing, as well as our benevolence, in that last year we decided to pay our local benevolence June and December. So there would be about $8,200 that would be added, or that we will be paying out in June.
So as Sherry is saying, we are meeting our expenses, but just barely. You saw on there it said $27,000, but there is an $18,000 revenue item that's in there, and that's from an estate gift, and we're very grateful for those who remember the church in their will, and that is a big blessing. That we are going to use that and to pay down this, again, pay the principal down on this variable rate mortgage, and that actually came out in the beginning of March. So we need to really subtract that figure from that $27,000 because there's no offsetting expense yet for it. The expense will hit in the month of March, and you'll see that next month when we do our financial reports. Anything else? So anybody have any questions? We want to be as open as possible on the finances and the affairs of the church. We keep hearing that we want more clarity, we want openness, and we are basically doing that. We're opening the books and asking you to take a look. So if anybody has any questions about anything that's going on finance-wise, please, now's your time. There is one person.
My question is, what did the pastors that rejected St. Peter's in the call process see as far as the financials go that we are not seeing?
Greg? Anyone? Adam? Is Jeff Smith here? Sure.
So I will say that the pastors that rejected the call here saw all the financials, and their decision had nothing to do with the financials. And when I say nothing, I mean absolutely nothing. It was more about the dynamics of the church body than it was about anything else.
We ran out of time.
So obviously we have multiple services. We have a very diverse community here, and as we as a diverse call committee sat down with the various pastoral candidates, they read quickly into some of the struggles we are having as a congregation with regard to where we stand on a number of issues. Everything from communion on Sundays, the whole way to where we stand relative to our support of several ELCA initiatives, and so those are issues that have yet to be, I'll say, really exposed and healed as a congregation. It's my prayer, as I know it is for so many in here, that that those dialogues continue and we get to a point where we can move forward in a unified front. And that is one of the things that we're hoping to accomplish here in the course of the next year or so, as we continue to open that door towards bringing in a successor to Pastor Ross.
Anyone else? Okay, and you probably noticed is in the Weekly Herald, we are now putting the financial report. So as soon as we meet this week, council will meet the following week, and then we will publish the full financial report in the Weekly Herald. So you say, well, why is it so late why am I getting this so late in the month? And the reason is because Finance Committee has to, well, I have to develop it, Finance Committee has to approve it, Council has to approve it before we can obviously publish it to the congregation. Because if I publish it and make a mistake, and then we publish it in the Herald, then we got to go make a retraction because I made a mistake. So that's the process and the approval. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'll take it. Are there any other special issues that anybody wants to raise before we conclude our town hall meeting? Yes. Okay.
How did we determine what number we needed for quorum?
It's 10%. Thank you for asking that. You mentioned the number that we have 930 confirmed members. It's 10% of that number is what the Constitution requires. Am I correct, Leslie? Yes. Confirmed. Okay. Anyway, when they said the number, it was like 93, I think, was the number. Active membership, and when it was over 100, I said that was a go. Okay. Any other questions?
Greg, over here.
Okay. Yes.
Mike Mann. Not really a question, but more of a comment, and I just frankly think it's something that's impressed me since they've started. I just like to give a shout out to Tom and Deb. I think what we have done with the music in this sanctuary, week in, week out, is nothing short of magical. And I think they deserve a huge amount of credit for what they've brought to the weekly worship.
Thank you. Thank you.
I agree, and I want to, as concluding remarks, this is my first time as president of the council to appear before all of you, and I want to thank everybody who helped make this happen. Adam, Leslie, everyone who volunteered gave me a lot of guidance and help throughout this process, Sherry and Paul. I want to thank each of you. I want to thank all the members of the committees who do a whole lot of work for this congregation. They contribute an amazing amount of work to this congregation to make sure that the essential part of this, coming here together, worship as God's body, happens. And I'm excited about the next part because we're going to be concluding, and that's what the exciting part is, to come and worship God. And as a member of the choir, I love it. So I echo that, and I'm looking forward to the exciting part of this morning. So do we need a motion to adjourn? No. Okay. With that, I will leave it to Pastor Ross to lead us. Let's conclude with the Lord's Prayer. Let's please stand. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.